Hi everyone. This week is episode 10. It is starting to feel like the real thing. Crazy. My name's Christina Heimstead. I'm here to talk about money, real estate, market, and more or less translating some crazy data that I read on a regular basis. And also hopefully educating everybody in terms of how to be more financially smart in our unofficial capitalist society. This week, we have a government that's open and functioning. Trump has funded the government, as far as I know, until, we got like 3 weeks of funding. So that's very exciting. After being shut down and closed for over a month. That's great news. I think we were closed for almost exactly 10% of the year, which pretty crazy. Employees missed 2 paychecks. So hopefully all this gets resolved and we get back to normal. The unfortunate thing is how this has impacted the market. Stocks have been down, I think, the last 2 weeks in a row. Not by a crazy amount, but it's not growing. Real estate. This week I'm calling it moving and shaking, mostly because I know I've been saying that we're slowing down quite a bit. We are still. However, I've been saying that investors are going to be coming out of the woodwork, because when you get this slowdown, there are things like property taxes which you cannot change. Those are there at the time of purchase and they fluctuate just over time. Until further legislation occurs, of course. So what's been happening in the last couple weeks, or just the first part of the year here, seen a lot more income property coming up and a lot of it being scooped up. Even properties that I would look at and say, somebody has to want this for some reason other than the fact that it would generate money. And that's what you're starting to see, is that there is an awful lot of transactions occurring. And even last week I talked to somebody recently who has been an investor for a very long time and was a little nervous about the market overall. And when you have the opportunity to go in, go low, and go hard, like what I've been talking about to some extent, you have an opportunity to reduce your purchase price, which controls one of your most significant costs when purchasing income property, which is your property taxes. So the conversation I was having was more or less that. You might not be able to see, and it's more or less what I've been saying, you're not seeing the appreciation swings, or you're not going to benefit from a significant appreciation upswing. However, what you ought to be able to do is, if you can identify a property that will cash flow at a rate that you find reasonable, you ought to be able to find those or aggressively negotiate to get one of those and control your costs and get a decent property that spits out some income for you in whatever capacity you choose to use it. I think there's also a number of people who are moving to the area as best as they can. I mean, there's some of this flight, there's some of this coming in, but there's a lot of this, you can feel it all churning. I mean, we had Floundering Frenzy, where it was kind of chaotic and people were trying to figure out what to do, and now it feels like people know what to do and they're starting to go for it, and all of a sudden it's boom, boom, it's like dominoes. There were 4 or 5 properties that I had my eye on, all went into escrow like within the last week. Bananas. If you are a seller who owns income property, do note that there's inventory out there, but I don't think you have to be nearly as aggressive with your pricing, because there are people out there who are looking for this kind of thing. Either they are investors, or there are other people. There was a couple I met a couple weekends ago, I want to say, or 10 days ago, something. And they were the epitome of financially aggressive people. bought a duplex, lived in half of it, rented out the other half, looking to do it again. and keep the existing one and just kind of keep the ball rolling. So I think that's the other side of it, is you do have people like them who will not be sellers, and will be looking to purchase more property. And I think my point in saying that you don't have to be aggressive with your pricing, or too terribly aggressive with your pricing, is there's movement. It's not for the lack of buyers, and it's what I said kind of at the beginning of this year, which is there is not a lack of buyers. There is not a lack of demand. It's the purchasing power. That's the part that's become more difficult. And for people who purchased in the last 18 months or so, if they were not aggressive with their purchase and purchase correctly, they might be in a tough spot. I think I mentioned there was one duplex that sold about a year and a half ago. Guy came into medical problems, had to sell his house or sell the duplex, took a massive $200,000 haircut just because he owned it for a year. And he needed the money for his medical problems. That really sucks. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I said the time before. Yeah, if he had waited like another 6 to 9 months, could have been in a whole heck of a lot better shape, sticking it out. But life happens. You will find some of those stories. Some people will get hurt going through the process. But it's hard to be negative, I think, about the situation. It just feels like there's stuff moving. And as somebody who's an agent who has skin in the game in all of this, that's pretty good news. I mean, the volume of transactions means that everybody, well, not everybody, but that a lot of real estate agents get paid. So a lot of us are, I think there was a little bit of doom and gloom, but when you see the movement, you get excited. And independent of me being a burden in somebody's ear, I have had a number of investors come out of the woodwork kind of getting ready to go. So I think some of it's that people don't want to be in the stock market, and I think other people are looking to diversify their overall portfolio, what have you. It's pretty wild. It's cool. Normal home sales, that on the other hand has taken a bit of a slowdown. Like I think I've talked about this as builders back out, investors who are developers back out, rehabbers. Without those are the people who benefit most from the significant appreciation swings are your developers, your flippers, and the like. And without this room for significant appreciation growth, they're going to disappear. The single family or condo or owner user or just owner occupied locations, those are still moving, but they're still seeing the slowdown that I've been talking about. But overall, good. Okay, on to data. On to data and reports from the last week. Unemployment claims decreased to under 200,000, lowest since 1969. That means people are working, they're moving and shaking, doing what they're supposed to do. And it's very easy to get discouraged at times, but overall, it's like what I said last week, the fundamentals of the overall economy are good. If you can't tell, a working population is part of that. Yeah, I mean, what is that? The lowest in 50 years. 50 years. That's wild. When you do the math and structure it in context of not just these generic numbers, we're talking about basically during the hippie movement, right? During flower power, all that stuff. That's where we're at in terms of, like, long time ago. I mean, pre my parents' generation, that's impressive. And it's great news. And in terms of the chart, yeah, I mean, I don't think Bill's data goes back farther than 1969, at least not in this chart. Wow. It's like sometimes you hear data like that, and then other times you hear data like drought data, and you get struck, and it's painfully shocking. Home builder stocks bounce back as mortgage rates slide. That is good news. It's very counter to what I just said in terms of builders backing out of the market. But if the mortgage rates are sliding, they're going to be getting in. And I mean, we did just have an email in the office of somebody who was looking to get in. But regardless, I think people have to just be choosier. And if they're home builder stocks, we're talking about big companies. We're not talking about the neighbor down the street who in retirement has decided that they want to develop homes. Not that sort. This is, well, and there's part of me that thinks that's not necessarily surprising, because if you're talking about home builder stocks, I mean, chances are you're looking at somebody who's looking to establish brand new communities. Not just like a scrape a lot, build a house. Like, for California standards, I mean, one of the top 10 builders in the U.S., I don't know if they still are, is located not far. And I know they were building up in, I want to say Santa Clarita, I think towards Carlsbad. I'm talking about kind of the outskirts of metropolitan areas. Or city centers like LA, or somebody working in San Diego, or what have you. And as millennials decide that they want the white picket fence lifestyle and they want to move out and get their own house, you've seen a lot of this data more in relation to like a city like San Francisco or New York, where they saw a lot of people come back. Those markets come back faster because that's where people want to be post-recession. However, people get maxed and they just decide, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to piss away all my money on rent. I want to, burn $1 million for a 2-bedroom condo, to be stacked on top of somebody else, then have an HOA that's maybe as much as $1,000 a month. Yeah, you see those people who are moving to the burbs. So that would make sense. Or at least I can rationalize it as such. Next bit. Yeah, Florida Keys real estate market thrives 16 months after devastating hurricane. This is a lot of people who are probably claiming their insurance, coming in and rebuilding, and all of a sudden, when you get that movement, it's like happened after World War II, I want to say. You had the war, women go to work, soldiers come back, and then contribute to the workforce, and all. It's like just picking up where the women left off and humming away. It's to be honest, those hurricanes that happened in Hawaii, my dad's been waiting for one of those forever. He's getting pretty excited. Waiting for somebody to figure out that they can't rent their vacation rental anymore and they just can't stand being vacant. It's not worth it to whether not only the first storm, but the storm of vacancy and road repair that it's going to take to resolve their issue. And get some money back in the door. Pending they're using it for income or personal use or what, something. Malibu, California sees sharp fall in home sales after fires. This one's maybe Malibu specific. Malibu in particular is very notorious for being very difficult to build, very challenging city regulations. You might buy Chumash land where you just can't build on it because it's some Indian reservation that you didn't know that you bought. Sometimes these super hot, desirable cities like Malibu, like Laguna Beach, can be tough in times like this, because in a situation where you have a fire and you need to claim your insurance and then try to rebuild your house as best as you can, cities where it's tough to build, Malibu, Laguna, others like it, can make it tough to, there's some word that insurance companies use to, it's like to make it whole. It's like if you get into a car accident and your insurance company decides not to pay the entire bill because they decide that your car has decreased in value since the time that you've owned it, and that if you were to bring it back to how it was, it's more than what it was prior to the accident, because it's a little bit like going in for a checkup and getting some meds and getting you all cleaned up and done right. Yeah, California, certain spots struggle that way. Also, oftentimes why you find such quirky things about those homes. Kind of fun, kind of weird, kind of a pain in the butt. And those fires were September, October, so we're talking maybe not even 6 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago. Okay, Q4 GDP forecast, mid to high twos. That means gross domestic product forecast. This just means how quickly are we growing? Mid to high twos. That's what Yellen had been targeting ages ago. 2.8. Tracking remains at 2.8 with the shutdown ongoing. We revised down Q1 GDP. That would be now from 2 to 2.2. Yeah, we're north of 2%. And this is probably contributing to why we can get lower interest rates. As long as we are at that 2% target, that Yellen wanted. I'm not sure if that's what we still want. I have to do that bit of homework. If that's what we still want, we can ease back on the interest rates and the rate hikes. So that would be some pretty great news for all parties. Sellers means you have buyers with increased purchasing power. Buyers means you can afford the house that you really want to get. Like there's a guy that I met in an open house almost a couple months ago now or so, and interest rates are rising. He's kicking himself and he is not happy, thinking he can't afford what he really wants anymore. And he sold his house and now he's renting, and don't know what the future holds for him. Case-Shiller National House Price Index increased 5.2% year over year in November. Going up. Down from 5.3 the previous month. The 10-city composite annual increase came in at 4.3%, down from 4.7 in the previous month. The 20-city composite posted a 4.7 year-over-year gain, down from 5% in the previous month. Yeah, we've got growing inventories, basically what we're saying here. And in our handy dandy chart, Case-Shiller and National. Yeah, so it's showing that we're getting pretty close. For nominal, not adjusted for inflation. Getting pretty close to where we were. And I know that that scares an awful lot of people, but if you look at the chart, it's a slow, steady pace, as opposed to the 0405 kind of complete slide up that we had. Yeah, national index is 11.7% above the peak and 0.4% in November. The national index is up 551.1 from the post-bubble. That means we're up by 50% from. Wow. That's wild. Again, I know this scares an awful lot of people, but if you have to kind of compare it all, right? So we've got, here's where the market is of looking at pre-recession highs. And for most people, they're thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to jump off the cliff. We're going to all fall and die and all this craziness. And, another recession, depression, even worse, whatever. But you have to look at the fundamentals overall. So we talked about it last week or the week prior. There's money in homes. That wasn't true last time. There's a lot of equity in these homes nowadays. And second, unemployment is down. We are at the lowest unemployment in 50 years. I know that the stock market's not great. There aren't a whole hell of a lot of people participating in it these days in comparison to years past. If we had done this right pre-recession, we would have had a slight correction, a little bit like what we've got going on, and we would have leveled off, and then we would have continued to grow, hypothetically. And that's more or less what we're doing. It's like, stretching. When you first start stretching, you're not very good at it. But if you keep practicing, you eventually get better at it. But you have limitations in terms of how far you can go at that very point in time. So I think people should look at their personal finance very similarly. There's only so much you are capable of doing at any one point in time. And when you take care of yourself and when you do the right things, you can go farther, stretch farther, do more things. And that's essentially what we're doing. And it's pretty rad, to be honest. I'm stoked. It's crazy. It's really good things. Yeah. It's funny, I think about movies like The Big Short and times like this where people were just speechless out of fear and chaos and stupidity. And this is like the exact opposite. It's like falling into like a really comfy bed after a really long day. And just being like, oh, done. It's great. We're limited on some data due to the government shutdown. It's the next article. Hotel occupancy increasing still. That one's really impressive. This is one I like to keep track of, not only in part because it demonstrates a few different things. It demonstrates disposable income, popularity of Airbnb, but most importantly, disposable income. And again, that's a good indicator of a healthy economy. It also contributes to real estate here, as a lot of people purchase property to do Airbnb or vacation rental or what have you. I don't know why this is showing median as opposed to something else. Makes me mad. I actually think 2017 was the high in terms of hotel occupancy rates. 2009 was the low, and we're significantly higher than 2009, obviously. Between 2000 and 2018, we've got a median, and we're definitely above there. We're ahead of 2018, but not by much. It's to be expected. People get it in their head that I'm going to go on vacation, and this is my spot, and I'm going every year, and you get some variety, but not a whole heck of a lot. But again, this is a good sign for the economy. It's people have money, people are spending their money, and other people are making money off of the people that are spending money. It's how the economy works. It's a big rotation. Because if you just have money and you bury it in the dirt, that doesn't do as much for you. Which is in part why this exists. Yeah. It's good things. This one was more nerve-wracking. National Multifamily Housing Council. Apartment market tightness index remained negative for the 13th consecutive quarter. Market tightness and equity financing slowed. Little change in those conditions from October, while the debt financing index 59 showed improving conditions. By contrast, the sales volume index 33 showed further slowing in property sales. Not what I'm seeing, but again, some of this is more national versus what we're dealing with on a more local level. Trying to skip to the important part here. Increase from 41 to 46, less than one quarter. Respondents reported looser market conditions than 3 months prior, compared to 13%. The index helped me call the bottom. They're saying supply has caught up with demand. And he expects rent growth to continue to slow. That's what this whole thing. Okay, rent growth is continuing to slow. And that's not that surprising. There was a lot of old inventory that was purchased. It was how, in all honesty, it was how my parents did it. Sold one place, went bananas, took the money and spread it as thin as they possibly could. And most of the property that they purchased was short sale, foreclosure. Somebody died. Somebody died at a really inconvenient time. Somebody sold because they had medical problems. All sorts of quote-unquote distress sales. And a lot of times those properties had a lot of deferred maintenance. So every once in a while, you'll see some property where the owner died, and you look at what the rents are for such and such a property, and it's insane how low the rents are. They'll be like less than half of what they should be charging, but then you walk through and you're like, well, it's not in good shape. But even so, I've seen ugly, tired places get more in rent than this place by a long shot. And it's just, spoke with an owner late last week. She has had the same tenants for about 5 years, never really